authors. I'm Joanne Morrell, children's and young adult fiction writer and author of short non-fiction for authors. Thanks for joining me for the Hybrid Author podcast, sharing interviews from industry professionals to help you forge a career as a hybrid author, both independently and traditionally publishing your books. You can get the show notes for each episode and sign up for your free author pass over at the Hybrid Author website to discover your writing process, get tips on how to publish productively, and get comfortable promoting your books at www.hybridauthor.com.au. Let's crack on with the episode. Hello, authors! I hope you're all keeping well in whatever part of the world you reside and listen to the podcast in. Today's interview is with author Suzi Samuel on revising a bestseller and her new book, The Dark at the Threshold. And we chat the challenges and triumphs of releasing a revised edition of a bestseller, her captivating new book, The Dark at the Threshold, and how your own experiences guided, and how Suzi's own experiences guided her first foray into fiction, Suzi's advice to writers looking to revise their published works and write in the supernatural thriller genres, and much more. So on my author adventure this week, it was a stunning day here in Perth, Western Australia. I took a walk around my local lake, as I often do. I leave the dog at home though. We've got a 10-month-old Cavoodle pup because she slows me up. The total walk takes about 40 minutes and it's just lovely. It's real nice. There's lots of different birds. I never thought I'd be this bird lady, but it's really just nice to get out in nature. I was really feeling like I needed it. With the dog, the last few times I've tried to take her around the lake, I've ended up carrying her at least 3 times. She just puts the brakes on and then I'm kind of dragging her, and then I've got to walk her around, cradling her like a baby. She's on her back and her tongue's hanging out, and I'm just like, it's embarrassing. You know, you don't have a dog to carry it, although I do pass by a gentleman who rides a bike and there's a dog in a basket. That type of thing is fine, but no, the dog, we don't actually walk our dog around. We don't take it out for walks, we just actually take it up to dog parks to socialise and for it to run free, which she much prefers than being chained up on a lead and, walked. But because we haven't actually trained her yet to not run away, and it's on the list of long things that need to be done, but really it should be on my daughter's list. It's her dog, so we all love it though. It is a nice addition to the family. And I nipped to the gym after the walk because I just really felt today like I needed it. It was one of those days where I felt like I needed to balance out the day before. So the day before, I think I must have had about 3 chocolate bars and, not a lot of movement, and just felt really grotty. And so you just kind of, some days you're like, right, I need this and I need that. And I had a Reese Witherspoon green smoothie and it was good. Lots of kid-orientated play dates after school and the like. And the nice day actually turned into a tropical storm and it felt like a bit of flash flooding. There was water swishing down our street and the plants were puddled, and which is good because it's obviously quite dry here in Australia for the summer. But it was just a bit random, but maybe it's like I don't really keep up with the weather, so I'm always a bit surprised, I guess, sometimes. But there's been a big cyclone over east, and again, I don't really keep up with the news either, which is maybe something I should. So maybe that is a little bit of the aftermath of that, who knows. Still a good temperature for March though. Autumn's my favourite month, so it's nice that you can just still go out and it's not too hot or humid, and you're still in shorts and t-shirt though, so. It still continues to be a very podcast-focused week for me. Lots of pictures coming in from the call-out I put on social media, which is amazing. I'm busy changing up my podcast processes, which involves working out how I do something start to finish and whether I can effectively make it better. But I feel I work more organised to a specific structure, and when processes work, that's great, but we can always do better, perhaps tweak things to work more in our favour. And for me, the podcast is my main focus for right now, for all the changes that I'm doing and getting that right, getting the process fluid as I can to easily adapt it. And each week I'm slowly learning more and using new tools to tighten my time and effort, so this is going well. I'm receiving more good feedback from my first in women's fiction, The Writer, Hairdresser and the Nurse, and I'm very much itching to get back into a writing project and get my next book finished, because I've got a few that's been waiting for my attention and I'm trying to determine which one to do first. It makes more sense to do the second in series for the women's fiction, but this young adult fiction book from last year, if you're an avid listener of the podcast, you know I was working on this young adult fiction book probably coming up to June last year, well probably around about this time last year actually, and I took it over to Rottnest with the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and I got it critiqued by the publisher there and other people, and I put it down because then I started working on that women's fiction, but it just keeps seriously bugging me. I think I found it on the computer the other day as well and read it, and I love it. I love the characters, and there's holes in it, and I know that, but it's a massive storyline, like a sort of big drama, small town, which I love. I really feel that that's calling. But I also would like to adapt my first in series women's fiction into television script. I've said this before, a very hybrid adaptation, and obviously if you're listening to the last few episodes, I'm talking about Holden Shepherd's young adult fiction book adapted into a TV series. So adaptation really intrigues me. I definitely have a keen interest in book to film and different mediums in the way that you can tell a story, and repurposing content as well. I don't want to call it content, but something television is, I watch a lot of it, but something I haven't done before in full myself. Usually television scripts and things are, and especially series and productions, are collaborative processes. I'd done a unit at uni where we worked in groups and we came up with a television series each. Gorgeous was working with a gorgeous group of girls, and we all wrote a script, like a episode for a 1920s style drama that joined together, and that was really fun. So writing is definitely beckoning me, and I really want to get back into it as soon as I can, because I miss it. I miss the thrill of creating a narrative, the characters, and bringing it to life on the page, and just really wanting to get back into that there. I'm also really enjoying currently thumbing Amy Schumer's Not a New Memoir. It's The Girl with the Lower Back Tattoo, and I'm loving it. When I was working in the library a few weeks back, it was just there on the shelf, and I'd actually watched her movie the day before, the new one that was on Netflix a few weeks back, and the pregnant one. I think she's great. She's so funny, and I love her movies and television series. I'm not a massive fan of her stand-up. I don't laugh as much at that, but I think she's awesome, and I think that if writers sometimes struggle with what voice is in writing, and definitely Amy Schumer's book is a book to read if you're unsure about voice. Her voice comes through massively in it. Obviously, memoir is all about the person's voice, the one that's telling the story and things. So I think memoir books are actually a good genre to read to capture voice and how one speaks and whatnot. It's a really good one. And whilst I've been reading Amy's book, I've just been aware of how it's taken me away from myself and my surroundings, as books often do. But yeah, I've also been realising I'm a chronic book sniffer, which is not new, but I did sniff Amy's book. And it just is the type of book that transported me back to having a memory of my younger years, because I was a massive reader when I was younger. And I find less time to read these days with everything I'm trying to do and with the kids and stuff like that. But it is a joy and it's a pleasure, and it's what I'm doing today has spawned from a passion, definitely a childhood passion of books. And when I sniff the books, I sound like such a freak, but the smell of the books gives me such vivid memories of growing up in Scotland, big old places they're not castles, but they're like towers and old houses. They're not houses, they're not castles, they're kind of like old musty mansions, the old paintings that like in Harry Potter, but the old style books as well, like the old kind of libraries with the yellowing pages and the musty smell. It just reminded me of running up and down the stairs in these places when I've been on camps for certain things, and it's a happy memory, and it feels like I've forgotten it for a while, so it was good to get it back.
Thorn Creative, where beautiful websites for authors are brought to life. No matter what stage you're at with your writing, Your stories deserve a dedicated space to shine. Whether you're just starting out or have a bookshelf full of bestsellers, your website is the hub of your author business, binding everything you and your books offer together. Thorn Creative can nurture all aspects of redesigning your old site or start afresh from the initial design. They can provide ongoing hosting and maintenance to marketing your books online, saving you time, money, and stress trying to wrangle your site yourself. An author website built by Thorn Creative can easily direct readers to your favorite retailers, your publisher, or simply set you up to sell to them direct. The options are endless. Thorn Creative have worked with many authors across all genres and know what goes into good, functional working author websites to sell books. Head on over to thorncreative.com.au/websites for authors to read author and publisher testimonials and to see what they offer and some of the sites they've created.
Suzi Samuel is the author of The Unintentional Medium and the soon-to-be published An Unintentional Journey. This is her first foray into fiction and draws largely on her knowledge of France and her own personal experience of the spirit world. Born in England, Suzi spent a large part of her life in Wimbledon, where she worked as a French tutor and translator. After the death of her beloved grandmother, her first husband, and an old clairvoyant lady, Mrs. Butterfield, she started to get very bizarre but accurate messages from the other side, and thus commenced her psychic work, which spans almost 40 years. In 1997, she married her Australian husband, David, and they later moved to Sydney, where she still practices her work as a medium and clairvoyant. Welcome to the Hybrid Author Podcast, Suzi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joanne. Can I just say here, An Unintentional Journey is not yet released. The one that is released is called The Dark at the Threshold, and that's the supernatural one that's set in France.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Well, welcome. We are dying to know, obviously your bio's fantastic, but how does it all tie in? How did you end up writing and in novels?
Well, that is a very good question, actually, because I called the first book The Unintentional Medium because it was really peculiar how it happened. As I say, my grandmother died, my first husband died, and then this lovely old clairvoyant lady I knew died, and she'd said, "You'll be doing what I'm doing one day." And I said, "Don't be so silly, silly old woman." But anyway, I was in a car with a friend going to a tennis tournament, and he was whinging and moaning about how he was so fed up with his job. And in a voice like Moses coming from the mount, I said, "You will be offered a job in a box or a tent at a sporting occasion when the flowers are blooming." And he looked at me and he said, "Christ, you haven't even had a drink. What's wrong?" And I said, "Well," and I was sort of cowering, like a puppy learns to bark and doesn't quite know where it's coming from. And I'm sort of, "Oh God, what's going on?" So anyway, this 6 months later, we were at the Queen's tennis tournament, and he said, "Hey, guess what? I'm being headhunted." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yes, I'm having lunch with the CEO of this company in the marquee on finals day." And we were surrounded by roses. And I sort of more or less fell into the roses. When they dragged me out and replenished the champagne, his girlfriend said, "Well, maybe what you told me will come true." And I said, "Oh, Jesus, what have I told you?" And it actually came true. And it started from there. So I started off as a clairvoyant, and I worked at that for quite a long time. So I can't remember the exact year, but about 18 years ago, David, he had a secret plan. I didn't realize this, but he brought me on a few softening up holidays to Australia. And a friend gave me a travel notebook. I mean, can you imagine how frightfully English, a travel notebook, So anyway, I'm going around Australia making little notes about things and thinking, oh, well, maybe there's a book in me. Who knows? There's a book in everyone, they say. Got back, and found I had breast cancer. And said, no, it's perfectly all right. But I had to have radiotherapy. So while I was lying on the slab, being sort of pulled around like a bendy bunny, I was rehearsing the first lines of this book in my head. And suddenly I'm lying there, and this same Moses on the Mount voice says, wrong book. And I'm looking all around this room thinking, where the heck's this come from? And they said, write about what you know. And so I started this. That was the Unintentional Medium. That was the first one. An Unintentional Journey, which we mentioned, is the prequel to the Unintentional Medium. It's not a psychic book, but it's a memoir. Yeah. And everybody who's read it said it's very funny, because I'm the sort of person that things happen to, So that was more or less all ready to go. Well, it was going to the printers the very next day. And meanwhile, I'd got this figure in my head. I kept being told a figure, 1468. Well, it's not exactly 1066 or 1939, is it? Or, And I thought, what is this 1468? And it wasn't 1468, it was definitely 1468. So I Googled it, and the only thing that happened in that year was that the then Pope made witchcraft a criminal offence.
Wow.
And I thought, hello, somebody's trying to tell me something. And I did live in France for a while, and I've spent a lot of time in France, and I used to work as a translator and a teacher. So I thought, there's something going on here. So I started writing The Dark at the Threshold, right? And it was almost as if somebody else was writing it. I know that sounds daft, but it was, even when I was asleep at night, somebody would wake me up and say, go and write. And I'd say, no, go away. No, go and write. No, clothes over your head, poke, 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 poke. Get up and write. I promise I'll write in the morning. No, right now. And so anyway, I swear that there was somebody with me all the time I was writing this. And literally the day before An Unintentional Journey was due to go to the typesetter, I typed the end to this book. And David, my husband, said, oh my God, we've got to leapfrog this. And he said, we really have got to push this book forward. And so, working on the principle that more people would like to read a supernatural thriller than read the memoirs of a dotty old woman, we went ahead with that. So that's basically how the books were written. I do hope that answered your question. I went on for an awful long time.
The more organic conversation, the better. It absolutely did. And a few questions come to mind. And I suppose, like with your clairvoyancy, and you knew Mrs. Butterfield and she passed and she had that message for you. And then that's when you started having like these voices and things like that after that?
After she died. Yes, it must have been a year or so after she died that started. She was a very determined old lady.
I was just thinking, if that's your past, that you had a clairvoyant friend and you sought that help, and then you had that message, and then you got the voices. Because in my mind, if it was the other way round and I started having the voices, I might think, am I going mad?
Exactly. Well, honestly, Joanne, that happens sometimes because people will pop in. And there's one person, David used to be quite involved in politics in England, and there's one person who's pretty well known from the political past who popped into our kitchen one morning while we were having breakfast. And I'm thinking, no, can't be. And I'm sort of looking all shifty. It just can't be. And so I passed some messages on to David that I couldn't possibly have known, because these people were friendly and I couldn't possibly have known. And he said, oh my God, it really was. So, I question a lot of the time, and I get weird messages. And sometimes when I'm in a reading, I'll get some really weird messages. And I'll say, does this mean anything to you? And they'll say, oh God, yes. And I'll say, well, thank God, because I don't know what I'm talking about, you know. So yes, it is a bit odd.
It's very interesting. It is. But that's amazing that this is all sort of tied together and it's guiding your writing, and that's fantastic. We've said today we're going to talk about your new book, The Dark at the Threshold, as well as topic about revising a bestseller. So we'll start with the Unintentional Medium.
Okay.
So that was the bestseller that you've decided to do a revised edition?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Why did you decide it's already a book that's done mightily well as a bestseller, and now you're doing the revised?
Well, it was a couple of things, really. This is a chicken and egg situation. I'm not quite sure which came first. But when I had this published, first of all, I went with I'm choosing my words a bit carefully here. I went with a company in America. I mean, I had a publisher here, but she worked with a company in America. And I didn't have a copy editor. Is that right? I didn't have an editor. I had a line copy editor, which, you know, didn't need a lot of work, but I should have had a proper editor work on it. So when the reviews came in, that was on Amazon, when the reviews came in, the professional reviewers on Amazon made the point that it jumped around time-wise and it was disjointed, right? So I thought that when I started working with my publicist, Nicole Webb, on The Dark, she said, well, look, I think that we should also push the Unintentional Medium as well at the same time again. And I said, well, you know, it's a bit disjointed, it's a bit funny. And I said, right, I'm going to rewrite it. I'm just going to jig it around a bit. And also the other thing was that we were having some copyright problems with this company in America. Right. So rather than, it all got a bit complicated. So rather than go into that, I thought, you know what? The easiest thing is just to rewrite it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not really terribly different stories or anything. That will be in other books and part of it in The Unintentional Journey and things. But it's more just getting it chronologically better. So much working with professional editors now. And it's just, I hope, glossed it up a bit and smoothed the rough edges, if you like.
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote it.
Even though they're different, sort of like the fiction and then supernatural thriller and like The Unintentional Medium, but they do kind of all tie the same. So I get Nicole's reasoning there for them to be pushed together.
Yes.
Well, so.
Yes. But it was a bit of a shock going into fiction because I'd never even tried it before. And it was great. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I'd lie awake at night. I mean, the main characters are called Claire and Robert, as you know, but I'd lie awake thinking, oh, I wonder what Claire and Robert will do now. I wonder what they'll do next. And it was almost like they took on their own persona, you know. It was very strange.
So you said you had that sort of voice that gave you that date. And I have to say, when I read that date, what was it, 14, 16? 14?
68.
Yeah, 68. And that, even I thought 14, you know, 68, that is really specific, and you don't really read a lot of books set in that time.
Oh, I mean, I'm quite nutty about anything to do with the Plantagenets and the Tudors, but I never heard that date. I was thinking, what the heck is that, you know? Other dates, yes, but it was very specific.
Yeah.
And, you know, I find that if the spirit world do want to get through, they are like a Jack Russell. They will not leave it alone until I do something, you know.
Yeah. So you were given that, and then you saw what had happened and things that day. And so is that what set you on the path to writing The Dark?
Yes, absolutely. Just that one little thing.
Yep.
And I was at a conference with my husband, and I suddenly had this idea, and I was grabbing napkins and sort of writing this preface out. And I wrote the preface to it on these napkins at this conference because it just came to, it was a bit of a boring conference, so I had time to think.
Well, not so boring. You got that good idea and wrote it on a napkin.
Yes, yes.
I've heard the best ideas are on napkins as well. The guy from The Barefoot Investor, the financial guy.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
think he wrote all his stuff on napkins as well. So
All right.
before the iPhone with the note. Yeah. So how else in the book have you had any other messages while you were, as you said, it felt like it wrote itself. You had someone kind of guiding you the whole way. What other experiences of your own have you put in there?
Well, it is a little bit autobiographical in that David and I went to France, bought a big old rundown pile, converted it into flats, and also a lot of it is based on my own psychic experiences, because for some reason I've had a lot of contact with the dark side. I mean, totally unwanted, totally uncalled for, but from places I've been to, houses I've lived in, whatever. And so a lot of the actual threat, if you like, I've actually experienced. And it's partly written, I don't know if this is conscious or not, all right, but what I do feel is that I need to get the message across to people. Sorry, I'm getting a bit serious now. I need to get the message across to people that meddling is very dangerous. You don't know what you can stir up. And I think now it's quite fashionable for people to, I was looking at reading an article in a magazine the other day about how in England, it's very fashionable now to have this interest in witchcraft and ghosts and stuff like that. And I really wanted to try and get across that it is dangerous to meddle and that the dark is always there. And so if you don't protect yourself and you don't know what you're doing, you can let it in. Yeah. So I guess that was just, sorry, that was a bit serious.
Oh, that's, yeah, I mean, it's all part of it.
Just another thing. And it's a love story. There are places, a lot of the places I describe I've been to. They've got different names, but I've been to them. And also the cooking is all part of it as well. The food, it's all part of me. So it is pretty autobiographical.
Yeah. So there's a bit of fact in there, but it's presented as fiction, which is great. Yeah. No, that's amazing. I love that. And I think The Dark at the Threshold, even the title, where did the title come from? From there.
Well, actually, it came from, it had a working title of The Following Dark. And most people, one girlfriend said, that's wonderful. Everybody else, including David, said, God, no, that's awful. And so I wanted to get the dark in it because I refer to evil as the dark all the way through the book. And so we threw ideas around and there it was. And the sequel is called The Long Tentacles of the Dark.
Ooh, oh, I like that.
Which is set in England, not in France.
Are you working on that right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Are you quite far in, or?
No, not terribly, because we've been doing a lot of work on publicizing the books, and it's not that long since I finished oh gosh, it's only Christmas I finished rewriting The Unintentional Medium. So it's not that long, but I've started it. I'm a few chapters in.
That's amazing. So The Unintentional Medium, you've rewritten, that's the end for that book now, that you don't feel like there'll be another revised vision after that one?
There might be like, as I've got older, more things have happened. So there could be The Unintentional Medium Part 2 or something.
Second edition, third
edition. But
that's... yeah. And for anyone wanting to, obviously your reasons for revising that book were there was some copyright issues and some political stuff. But anyone looking to revise works that have already gone out there and they've done okay, do you have any advice for anybody looking to do that? Like while you were revising it, maybe there was some stuff that came up you thought, well...
Well,
or even in the first place. Well, I guess for yourself, I was going to say in the first place, so you wouldn't have to revise it. But our stories are a little bit similar. The first book that I put out in my first year of uni, and I always say this, and my listeners be like, "Oh, she's talking about that again." I was in such a hurry to get it out, and I had some people read it over and things and proofread it, but didn't go with a professional editor.
exactly.
Like lesson learned, isn't it?
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. And the way I revised it, I obviously had it on the computer. So I printed it off and I put the chapters all over my dining room table, right? Every chapter, laid it out in chapters. And I had a look at it. I mean, my poor husband, we didn't have a dining table for a couple of weeks. You know, we had supper on our knees sort of thing. But anyway, I had all these papers on the dining room table and I'd look and I'd think, okay, so that refers to that. Or where was I in my life when this happened? Because I think I tried to get it more in categories almost than chronological order. And so for me, the way I did it was just swap it around and stand there and have a look physically and see where it was, because I'm a very old lady now and I'm really not very good with computers. It was much easier for me to do that. But I think I don't know what you feel, but I feel when you get further into writing and you work with incredibly good editors and you see what they do,
Yeah,
and they actually say to you, look, the one for An Unintentional Journey was a lovely lady called Bernadette Foley, and she put little notes in.
We've had her on the podcast actually,
Oh,
from Broadcast Books.
That's it. She's absolutely
amazing. Yeah, she's great.
Oh. And she would say things like, okay, you've mentioned David, but you haven't even met him yet. And things, so nobody knows who he is, because I would jump forward and things like, and so just little things like that. And Kate Stevens, who did The Dark at the Threshold, is also absolutely fantastic. And working with her as well, you seem to get a feel a little bit for, I mean, God knows I could have probably done with an edit in an Unintentional Medium, but you know, it's just, I don't know, osmosis.
It's a process, yeah. You learn as you go.
Yes.
So get an editor first up would be
yes.
your no, good. And when you're first starting out, if you don't have that sort of guidance or anything, and you are kind of learning as you go, as you say, you can just incorporate it later on.
Yes.
So no,
so it's probably still lacking a bit, but it's I'm happy with it now.
Yeah. Oh, I think they say a book's never done, and we could change it and change it and change it forever. So
I know. I've got a friend who's a writer, and he's been writing this book for donkey's years. And I said, "Oh my God, you'd be like Flaubert." Bovary. I said, "I just hope you're not in the bathhouses in Marrakesh."
Hilarious! Yeah. Oh my goodness. So back to The Dark at the Threshold. So it's all going very well, the promotion of it, and how is it being received?
Well, at the risk of sounding a bit conceited, and I'm you know, being English, I hold back on this because I have this horror of sounding conceited, but everybody who's read it is just raving about it.
Amazing.
And that's professionals. That's not just my nearest and dearest who say, "Oh, darling, it's so wonderful, you're so clever." Yeah. You know, but people who've actually, the professionals who've read it say it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm thinking, what? But anyway, I will let the readers be the judge of that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, can you please tell us where our listeners can find the Unintentional Medium and The Dark at the Threshold, and where can they find everything that you do online?
Okay, so at the moment they're available through my website, which is www.theunintentionalmedium.com, and you can just go there, press on PayPal, and you'll get it as soon as the post allows. So.
Fantastic.
It will be on Kindle very soon as well. We're working on that too.
Amazing. And then you've got book 2 in the pipeline. Will that be this year, next year, do you think?
Oh, this year.
This year as well. Yeah.
This year. Yes, definitely. There is a little bit of a cliffhanger at the very end of the book, so hopefully we'll go on and see what happens to them in England.
Do you see this as expanding into more of a series type thing from here, or?
Oh, I'd love it to be. I would really love it to be. I feel I've got 2 series going on, one about memoirs, and then a friend of mine said, oh, you should do a book of short stories about things that have happened to you. And I thought, oh my God, I'll be writing forevermore.
Oh, no, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Suzi, for coming on and telling us about it and sharing your experiences. We can tell from your enthusiasm and your voice and things that everybody's going to be extremely interested to go out and read your books.
I do hope so.
No, that was amazing. Thanks, Suzi.
Thank you so much, Joanne.
So there you have it, folks, the exceptional Suzi Samuel. Suzi is such a gorgeous soul and her books are absolutely sensational. Next time on the Hybrid Author Podcast, uncovering truths in young adult fiction with author Karen Cunningham on writing and self-publishing Missing Sarah Harris. I wish you well in your author adventure this next week. That's it from me. It's bye for now.
That's the end for now, authors. I hope you're further forward in your author adventure after listening, and I hope you'll listen next time. Remember to head on over to the Hybrid Author website at www.hybridauthor.com.au to get your free author pass. It's bye for now.